Welcome back, champions of Azeroth, to another one-on-one PvP guide video. Today we're all talking about Unholy Death Knights. I'll show you how to play it and also what talents are optimum to use. Also what the stat priority will be and which gear you should aim for. I'll also show you the normal rotation and the burst rotation. So at the end of this guide video you'll know the basics on how to play Unholy Death Knight and absolutely massacre people in PvP. So let's go! So here you have the talents that I'm running with at the moment. It's a build, that's more like single target orientated, but it also works fine with some AoE. The left tree is the one that you don't change that often, I would say. The goal is like to go with Empower Rune Weapon, to get A-Bomb Limp. That's your main goals, and also Death Echo is really important because it will give you another charge of Death Advance, Death and DK and Death Grip. This one's really crucial to get. The only point in the left tree that I would consider changing would be improved Death Strike. This one increases your self-healing a little bit. If you don't need that one, you can swap this one out. And if you want some extra damage, I see some people putting it here in Merciless Strikes. Increases critical strike chance by 2%. That's one you can go for. I personally like a little bit better self-healing, so I always go with improved Death Strike. I don't change this one at all, to be honest. I really don't. So here on the right tree we have the Unholy talent tree. I think this is at the moment the best one out there, the best build. It does AoE damage and also is great for a single target damage. You can make an AoE build if you swap to Ebon Fever, but yeah, I will not do that, and you can sacrifice a little bit in here. But I don't do that. I think this is the build I have the most fun with. It does a lot of damage, especially when you burst. Really hard for people to survive. Let me explain you quickly what I'm going with here. So really important is to get Super Stain for some increased diseases. You want to get Unholy Assault eventually. And you want Harbinger of Doom, Call of Devastation and Reaping. So this is the build. Really great for battlegrounds, also for arenas, for some single target pressure. You go over here to Sudden Doom, like your auto attacks have a chance to make your next death goal or epidemic cost no runic power. And with the talents here below, you'll see that your death goals will deal a lot of damage. It's Rotten Touch. Sudden Doom causes your next death goal to also increase your Scourge Strike damage against a target by 50%. So another really great one to improve one of your main abilities to burst Festering Wounds, which is Scourge Strike. This will make sure it will hit harder. In PvP it's not 50%, but still it hits harder. Really nice. Down here you have Harbinger of Doom. So Sudden Doom triggers 30% more often and can accumulate up to 2 charges and increase the damage of your next death goal by 20% or epidemic by 10%. So again, this one will make your death goal hit pretty hard. Over here to the left, because we want to go with Call of Devastation, this is one that you occasionally can swap out. Normally, if you face a lot of people that you know you can have a lot of uptime on, like you can get close to them every time, in those cases it's really good to go with Plaguebringer. So Scourge Strike causes your melee or causes your diseases damage to occur 100% more quickly for 10 seconds. So every time you do Scourge Strike and you burst a Festering Wound, you'll get this buff and then all your disease will tick 100% more quickly. So that's again increasing your damage over the fight. Really nice. But this one is only useful if you can keep on top of your enemy. If you face, for example, a lot of Frost Mages, they'll just slow you down forever, freeze you in place. In those situations, I would swap Plaguebringer for Clawing Shadow. So Clawing Shadow replaces the Scourge Strike and it deals like an X amount of shadow damage and also causes 1 Festering Wound to burst. The big reason why you want to go for this one is because Clawing Shadow, if you can look at there, it has a 30-yard range. While your normal Scourge Strike, which is this one over here, like your Scourge Strike is like a melee ranged ability. So if you can keep on top of your enemies, Plaguebringer will deal more damage over the long fight. If you suspect to be kited a lot, then go with Clawing Shadows, because that one can be used from range, which is really nice. So it doesn't matter if they're far away, you can still burst Festering Wounds with this one. If you go down the tree, you have improved Death Goals. So Death Goals deals additional damage and also hits another target. So that's really great if some people are standing together. But also single target, it makes sure your Death Goal hits harder, which is really nice. Then you go down Call of Devastation. Death Goal causes the target to take an additional 30% of the direct damage dealt over 4 seconds. So after your Death Goal, they'll have this debuff on them, which takes, yeah, it's like a debuff, it's a dot. which also ticks for some extra damage. Also very important with this build is this centerpiece right here. The Mages of the Dead. That's one what you really want to go for. And important, in order to get them, you have to get Apocalypse, which is one of your main burst abilities. And Mages of the Dead, make sure that Apocalypse and Army of the Dead also summon a Mage of the Dead, who hurls frost bolts and shadow balls at your foes. Does a lot of damage, can slow people down if he throws out frost bolts. And I think even with the PvP tier set, you can make sure that it will stay there for longer. It spawns another Mages of the Dead whenever you do Army of the Dead or the deaths that spawn from Apocalypse. This one is really key to take, does a lot of damage, and it works really great with your 4 tier set for PvP. Amazing damage that they can do. Then of course here you have Army of the Dead, it's mandatory. Army of the Damned, Apocalypse cooldown is reduced by 45 seconds, really nice because of the really big burst cooldown. Additionally, Death Call and Epidemic reduce the cooldown of Army of the Dead by 5 seconds, also nice. And then down here you have Super Stain, which causes your Virulent Plague, which is your disease, to also apply Frost Thief and Blood Plague, but that will reduce effectiveness. But still, more dots is always nice. You can spread them out over multiple persons. Down here on the left, we have Replenishing Wounds. When a Festering Wound pops, it generates an additional 2 wounding power, which is nice, so you can put out more Death Calls. Down here, it's like for the single target damage, you want to go with Bursting Swords. I wouldn't take this one. I think the dot build, I think is pretty boring. I like more the single target build, which also does a lot of AoE damage still. So, Bursting Swords. Bursting a Festering Wound deals 20% more damage and deals an X amount of shadow damage to all nearby enemies. Deals reduced damage beyond 8 targets. For this one again, make sure your single target damage is buffed. And will also spread some of the damage from Bursting Swords or from Bursting Festering Wounds to targets around your target. Again, also pretty good for some AoE. Then you go here with Pestilence. Death and Decay damage has a 10% chance to apply a Festering Wound to the enemy. So where is this useful? For example, if you have a lot of people around you, you can have Festering Wounds on multiple persons. But I think the most important about this one is, for example, if you're being guarded by a Frost Mage, for example, and you're running with the Clawing Shadow builds, but you don't have any Festering Wounds on him anymore, you can place a Death and Decay on them, or in this case a Defile. And that one has a 10% chance, every time it does some damage, to apply a Festering Wounds to the enemy. So even though he's running away from you, or standing there casting but freezing you in place, if you put a Defile or Death and Decay on him, you still have a 10% chance to create a Festering Wound on him, which then you can pop with Glowing Shadow. So then you have some kind of a way to apply Festering Wounds even from range. That's really, really nice. You go down here to Death Rod, Death Call and Epidemic, deliberate your enemy applying Death Rod, causing them to take 1% increased shadow damage up to 10% from you for 10 seconds. So again, this is like another buff that makes sure your enemy will start to take more and more damage. Pestomite, popping a Festering Wound increases your strength by 2% for 20 seconds. Any more stacks don't increase the duration. So Pestomite is something you have to be aware of whenever you're about to do your burst window. Because you don't want to do your burst whenever, for example, there's 5 seconds left of this Pestomite buff. In that case, it's better to wait till it finishes the 20 seconds and a new cycle starts. Apply some Festering Wounds, burst them, and then you have increased strength whenever you do your big go. Unholy Assault works really nicely with Apocalypse, your damage big burst ability. And I'll show you later in a burst rotation. Strike a target dealing an X amount of shadow damage, affecting the target with 4 Festering Wounds, and sending you into an Unholy Frenzy, increasing all damage done by 20%. So this one is really huge. And I think I like it indeed because it makes your burst a little bit more smoother. But taking into consideration, you do have an extra button to press during your burst, and I'll show you later, like setting up the burst takes quite some effort to do the real big damage. Over here to the left, Defile is one you don't need to take, but I think it's useful. It replaces your Death and Decay. It also shortens the cooldown, because I think Death and Decay was like a 30-second cooldown. This is a 20-second cooldown, so reduced. Defiles the ground, dealing an X amount of shadow damage to all enemies over 10 seconds. While you remain within your Defile, your Scourge Strike will hit 7 enemies near the target. That can be great, for example, if you see a group further away from you, out of range. You can also pop a Defile on them, and then if you stand still or you're frozen in place and you have Glowing Shadows, you can hit all of those people, like up to 7, from range as an Unholy Death Knight. Also, again, that's a really nice benefit if you're playing against a lot of ranged classes who will slow you down forever. Also, every second any enemies are standing in the defile, it grows in size, dealing increased damage. That's also nice, but here's the thing. Increasing your mastery by 1% up to 8%. But this one's really great. If you yourself are standing in it, if you're damaging someone, you can have up to 8% more mastery. And mastery is a really great stat to have. And I'll show you later also in the stat priority. Also in the right one that I didn't mention, like some people don't play it, but I do. Your Soul Reaper, Scourge Strike, Festering Strike and Death Call deal a 30% additional damage to enemies below 35% health. I like this one because we do some good single target, but not like massive, like for example like a Red Paladin, for example. When they push their cooldowns, people just die almost instantly. Unholy Death Knight is not that strong, the burst, but still really significant. But for us it takes a little bit more time to down someone. But that's also how Unholy Death Knight works. This one makes sure you have a little bit more execute power, which I think is really nice. This is the build that I really recommend. I have a lot of fun with. I see it a lot in high-rated arena fights. A lot of people run with this one. It's an absolute blast. Highly recommended. And now we go to the PvP talents right here. Even after the nerf to necrotic wounds, it's still worth taking it to absorb some incoming healing and transfer it to yourself. So you can slowly work on an enemy healer's health pool. Really nice, you can pressure them. Always take necrotic wounds. Doom Burst is also one that I always recommend taking. Sudden Doom also causes your next death call to burst up to 2 festering wounds and reduce the target's movement speed by 45% per burst. But because it bursts too, it will be the movement speed of your enemy will be reduced by 90%. So they're almost sitting there still for like 3 seconds, but you can catch up. Those two I think are mandatory. This one right here, it's up to you what you want to do with it. A really strong one, because you're like anti-mages or anti-caster in general. A really strong one is to go with Strangulate. Shadowy tendrils constrict an enemy's throat, silencing them for 4 seconds. So I'll just quickly explain why this is really good. Because if you are fighting a mage, for example, you already have Mind Freeze, so you can already interrupt a spell and then you're locked out of that school for 3 seconds. You can follow that up by a Strangulate, and then they can't cast any spell for another 4 seconds. So you can lock them out for like 7 seconds back to back, that they can't cast any spells, which is really huge if you ask me. And on top of that, of course, you have Anti-Magic Shell, absorbing magic damage. You also have Anti-Magic Zone, again absorbing magic damage, but then also for the people standing inside, that's really great for a really great utility ability. So you're really built like an anti-caster class. This one empowers it even more. Also great for just executing healers. If they're getting low, you strangulate them, and then they're pretty much screwed for 4 seconds. And if you burst at that moment, high chance he's gonna die, or that he or his teammates have to pop a massive cooldown to save that person. And then again, Strangle is only a 1 minute cooldown, so really good. If you face more like a melee heavy composition, there's another one I would do. If you face a heavy melee composition, you can go with Bloodforged Armor, especially if that melee composition has a lot of physical damage. It also works really good against Hunters, because Hunters, of course, majority of the damage, especially for Beastmaster, I think Beastmaster is almost all physical damage, I think. Bloodforged Armor makes sure your Death Strike reduce all physical damage taken by 20% for 3 seconds. So after the armor nerf that hit us as Blade Wearers, we're a little bit more squishy and more vulnerable against physical damage, which we as Death Knights are already really vulnerable to. This one makes sure you're a little bit tougher. It only works against classes that do a lot of physical damage, so take that in mind. If you face melees, you can also go with this one, Necromancy's Bargain. The cooldown of Apocalypse is reduced by 15 seconds, and Apocalypse is your big burst ability. And it will apply Crypt Fever, deals 8% of the target's maximum health. And every time he's healed in those 4 seconds, refresh the duration of Crypt Fever. So if you have a DPS or a healer, you're fighting him, and you do Apocalypse, he'll get that Crypt Fever on him, dealing 8% of his health. Every time he is being healed, he'll do another 8% of damage of their health, and the duration lasts again 4 seconds. So this works great if you're facing against targets that are constantly being healed, because then you have a big damage rolling on them every time. And what you can also play, but it's not that favorable, is Necrotic Aura. All enemies within 8 yards take 4% increased magical damage. That's just a flat damage boost. Damage is always nice, but in general, if you face a lot of casters, I would recommend staying with Strangulate. Let's talk about the step priority next. Let's go. Alright friends, I'm quickly going over the step priority and also show you which crafted pieces I think you should go with and which embellishments. As an Unholy Death Knight, you want as much strength as possible, followed by versatility, followed by mastery, followed by haste, and then followed by critical strike. And the guy here behind me, the red one, is where you usually get the best gear from, which is the conquest gear, of course. A place where you can get the crafted gear, and also yeah, where you can put the embellishments on there. Of course, it's in Veldraken. On the map, if you have Veldraken, you go down here, you talk to one of those vendors that you can see over here. So there are two pieces I want to go for. The first one will be the chest. So we'll go to armor, we'll go to plate, now we'll go to the chest. Search. It's this one right here, the Primal Molten Breastplate. That's the one that you want to go for. Gives a lot of strength, stamina, and you can put yeah, some stats on there. So you put in your spark right here. For this one you have to get 16 Primal Molten Alloys, which you can buy from the auction house. This slot is not necessary, you don't need. We want to go for versatility and mastery, so we have to go down. This one right here. So you have to go for the Draconic Missive of the Harmonious. And then with the embellishments, you go with the Verdant Conduit. Spells and abilities sometimes provide secondary stats. So this is also you want to put on there, because secondary stats is also really nice. And if you're playing a human, for example, as a race, it will be boosted even further. We put in a token, so then the item level in PvP will be buffed. Okay, the second piece you want to go for is in the feet slot right here. And it's the Infurious War Boots of Impunity. So this one's really easy. You don't even need to put an embellishment in there, because it already comes with an effect. This one is optional, you don't need. Here again you put in a PvP token, so it will up the item level in PvP zones. You put in your spark, large sturdy femur, obsidian seared alloys, and 16 infurious alloys, which all you can buy from the auction house. This one you can see right here. It gives you strength, stamina, and it already comes with versatility and mastery, so you don't have to put a missive in there, and you can't even right there, but the effect it gives you, successfully applying a loss of control effect to an enemy, or interrupting an enemy, or dispelling any target, increase your primary stat by an X amount for 10 seconds. A primary stat will be strength, of course, and strength directly increases your damage. Those two crafted items you want to go with. So I'll just talk about the normal rotation. So I'll tell you which abilities you use when, and also put it down in the description for you all to read at it, and you can practice on the target dummy yourself afterwards. But the normal rotation is pretty easily. I always like to maintain my chains of eyes on my enemy targets, so he's permanently slowed, and keep refreshing it so I can stay up with that enemy. You use Outbreak to put your diseases onto your enemies. Make sure you keep them on. If they are about to fall off, refresh them again with Outbreak. You'll generally use Festering Strike to create some Festering Wounds. So a general rule, when you have 4 Festering Wounds on a target, don't use Festering Strike anymore, because then you have potentially, you can overcap and lose 1 Festering Wound. And you have Scourge Strike or Clawing Shadows, depending if you get a talent, to burst those Festering Wounds. And if you are close to capping on Runic Power, you will use Death Coil. And also whenever you get a proc of Sudden Doom, you also immediately use Death Coil. Alright, so there we have our target. So I'll just apply a Change of Eyes, prep my diseases. There we go, go in. A Festering Strike, Scourge Strike, Death Coil, Scourge Strike, Death Coil, Scourge Strike, Death Coil, Scourge Strike. We have a proc, so we'll use that one, and we can fire another Death Coil, Festering Strike, Scourge Strike, Death Coil, Death Coil, Scourge Strike, Scourge Strike, Death Coil, Scourge Strike, Scourge Strike, Death Coil, and then a Festering Strike again. Spend some Runic Power, pop some Festering Wounds. Like, that's in general the rotation you can do, the normal rotation outside of your burst windows. And I think that's a really easy, an easy rotation to follow. So I'm gonna show you all how to do that, how to burst as an Unholy Death Knight. I'll quickly go over what you should press when briefly. I'll also put it down in the description of this video, so you can check it out later and try to practice it on the target dummy for yourself. So, how to burst as an Unholy Death Knight. There are a few things you want to do first before actually casting any damaging ability. So, first what you want to do, probably like 4 seconds before you want to start the fight, you should use Army of the Dead. And why 4 seconds? Because Army of the Dead, the animation, it takes roughly 4 seconds for those minions that you rise like that to actively be there and be ready to punch people. So 4 seconds before you suspect to start or want to start a fight, you cast Army of the Dead. After casting Army of the Dead, you'll use Abomination Limb. Abomination Limb does some shadow damage. It's really good as only the damage as well. And of course it makes sure you grab people towards you, so you can pull everyone in to try to AoE them down also, kind of. After Abomination Limb, you want to cast Defile. Defile is the one that I will go for because I'm talented into Defile. And why? Because with the Defile talent, and that's I think why you want to choose it, it also gives you Mastery, right? And it does some damage. So you want to for the Mastery, because more Mastery means your minions will deal more damage and you yourself will deal more shadow damage. After that one, you want to cast Dark Transformation to transform your undead into a monstrosity, which will up their damage big time. After that, you want to cast Unholy Assault, because Unholy Assault, it creates 4 festering wounds on your target and it will increase your damage done to them for 20 seconds by 20%. After Unholy Assault, you want to cast Empower Rune Weapon. Empower Rune Weapon, you don't necessarily want to do it for the runic power, but purely for the 15% haste increase that will give you. After that, you want to use your PvP trinket to give you an extra stat boost, because of course stat boost will be your primary stat, will increase your damage. And after that one, you want to cast Apocalypse. With Apocalypse, you'll burst those 4 wounds on your target, which does some damage. And of course the hit from Apocalypse itself does some damage and you'll spawn another army of minions. And with both Army of the Dead and with the deaths you will spawn from Apocalypse, they also summon those mages of the damned. But that, anyway, it's the mage that casts Shadow Bolts and Frost Bolts as your targets, which do a lot of damage. And after that, you'll just continue with your normal general rotation. Let's go to the training dummy and I'll show you how to use it. Alright friends, there we go. We're going for some bursty damage. So make sure you have your diseases up running on them before you go. And 4 seconds before the fight you press Army of the Dead. So here we go. Diseases, Army of the Dead, A-bomb limb. Press this down there. And there we go. Like, this does so much damage, guys. It's crazy. Damage is absolutely insane. And here to the left you can see whatever I'm doing. Okay, refresh diseases. There we go, man. Hit them hard. Yeah, now start to fall off. So, okay, let's go back. And then we'll look at the damage. So, yeah, I think the damage because the target damage is a little bit different. But here it says like almost 40 million damage. That's insane. Yeah, look at this. Abelman did so much. But I think that's because of all the targets around here. So I don't think we should keep this one in consideration. Army of the Dead did a lot, the Mage of the Dead as well, or Pet 2. And for ourselves, like Death Call does a lot, Scourge Strike and Festering Wounds does a lot of damage. Like, I'll just put the burst rotation also in the description, so be sure to check it out. And also the part where I just did my burst, because I wasn't explaining it while I was doing it, because there's so much stuff you have to press. And it's hard for me to talk to you and also do the abilities myself. It's really hard to already get the abilities because there's so much setting up for bursting as an Unholy Death Knight. So be sure to watch it back, and then here to the left of my character you could see whatever I was pressing. But the damage, absolutely disgusting, guys. It's absolutely bonkers. Alright, there you have it, friends. This was my 101 PvP class guide video for Unholy Death Knights. I hope you find this guide to be useful. And most importantly that in PvP, by following this guide, you'll have some fun. Oh jeez, we're getting attacked. They never listen, those undead. Yeah, hope you guys have some fun in PvP. Let me know what you think about this guide in the comments. And also if you have some successes with this guide too, with the build I showed you, please let me know in the comments below. Have some fun in PvP. This was Command Dirk, and I'll see you in the next battle. Salute.